it won't be a scenario where 2 days later the EB-5 program goes away. Our legislative process in the US is quite slow. So the process would generally be that the Trump administration will come up with an idea and their plans for a new type of program, and that is how the process will be started. I don't think it will even take months. I think it could take well over a year to go through that process and to make a new program.
So during your all your experience with advisory consultation with EB-5 program, do you notice any difference between the Vietnamese investor comparing to other nationalities?
They're also a little bit more conservative maybe than some other countries. I think that's a reflection of, they want to be sure that they're making a good investment.
Xin chào quý vị khán giả đã đến với chuỗi B-Talk trải nghiệm đầu tư di trú được thực hiện bởi BSOP ngày hôm nay. Dạo gần đây chắc là mọi người đều nghe nhiều thông tin về thẻ vàng Mỹ và với số tiền đầu tư 5 triệu đô Mỹ để có thể nhận được quyền lợi cư trú mà không cần ở tại Mỹ. Vậy thực hư với chương trình thẻ vàng Mỹ như thế nào? Những quyền lợi cũng như là những cái điểm bất cập hay là những tương lai của chiếc thẻ vàng sẽ ra sao? Đặc biệt là câu hỏi liệu có đáng để đầu tư vào chiếc thẻ này hay không? Hôm nay chúng tôi vinh hạnh được mời luật sư Jennifer Hermansky, một luật sư đầu tư di trú của Mỹ cũng như đặc biệt trong lĩnh vực EB-5 đến chia sẻ cùng với buổi B-Talk của chúng tôi, giải đáp những câu hỏi liên quan quyền lợi nào đối với nhà đầu tư khi nhận được thẻ vàng, liệu có rủi ro nào hay không và liệu đây có phải là một chiến lược đầu tư hợp lý sắp tới cho những nhà đầu tư Việt Nam hay không. Hello and welcome all to B-Talk Immigration Investment Experience Sharing by BSOP today. So lately, the US Gold Card program, which requires $5 million investment, has sparked significant debates. Some investors see it as a way for the ultra high net worth individual to gain benefits similar to EB-5 green card without residing in the US. However, concern remains about high taxes, the program competitiveness against other options, and the question still remains that is it worth investing in. So today we are honored to speak with lawyer Jennifer Hermansky, a leading expert and lawyer with EB-5 field to analyze about the Gold Card program and who will benefit from this program, what risks should be considered, and is it a reasonable immigration strategy for Vietnamese investor? So welcome Jennifer to B-Talk today.
Thank you, come on.
Okay, so I see you can speak some Vietnamese.
Just little.
Just a little, okay. So I guess that you have been in Vietnam for several times already.
Yes, many times. I have probably been to Vietnam more than 30 times. So I'm very happy every time I get to come back to Vietnam and meet with all of our partners like BSOP and also interact with all of you and meet new families who are interested in moving to America.
Okay, nice to hear that. So can you introduce a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so my name is Jennifer Hermansky. I am an immigration lawyer in the United States. We are a very large law firm throughout the world. We actually have almost 3,000 lawyers across the whole world, and we have 48 offices, including 4 here in Asia. So I'm very happy to come here to Vietnam to interact with individuals that want to move to the US, and I'm happy to answer people's questions about our investment immigration program called EB-5, and here today to talk about potentially a new investment program that we might have, the Gold Card.
Okay, it's very honored to listen about your history and about many experiences that you have been through during the EB-5 investment.
Yes.
So you know that our goal today is discussing about the Gold Card program.
Yes, of course.
Of course, you know that recently President Trump has been announced about the Gold Card, which is attracting widespread attention. However, no official document have been outlined the detail of the program yet. Actually, in the video, he mentioned about 2 week notice, but now it's already been more than 2 weeks and haven't been anything new released. Correct. So what was your initial reaction when you were hearing about the Gold Card? Do you see it as a great opportunity or a concerning issue?
I think it can be a good opportunity for investors as well as the US. So right now, we have only one type of investment immigration program to the United States. It's called the EB-5 visa. So when President Trump announced a few weeks ago that he would like to introduce a new program called the Gold Card at a $5 million investment level, it surprised us. And initially, we think it could be a good idea. There are many countries in the world that have multiple types of investment immigration programs. Usually in some countries, we have a lower investment level where you give money that is used by the government explicitly, and you get permanent residency there through that type of investment. There's also other types where maybe you invest in private business or in real estate, and maybe that amount is a little bit higher, but you also get permanent residency through that way, that avenue.
Yeah.
So many countries actually have multiple ways to go to a permanent residency through investment immigration. We do not currently, but it would be great potentially for the United States to have multiple programs. It's good for investment into the US. It's good for investors to have different options that might suit their needs. And it also is good for the US government, who now might have the opportunity to utilize foreign direct investment to do important projects in the United States. So overall, we would welcome to have multiple programs. But that being said, one of the goals, I think, today is to discuss what might also happen with the EB-5 program.
Yeah.
And of course, it's our opinion that that program should also stay around, and it would be good to have multiple options. So we're happy to talk about that today, what might happen to EB-5, and to give some confidence back to investors that EB-5 isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah. I think that's also the concern of all the investors over the world, especially with EB-5 program. Because besides mentioning about the Gold Card program, he also mentioning about stopping the EB-5, and that make many people, worry about the future of EB-5. Actually, in Vietnam, this topic is also being actively discussed in many investment forum and between the investor as well. And that some investor accuse that with the 5 million they can do many things else, not only to invest into US, but that is some people opinion. And that a recent Forbes interview, they interview 18 billionaires from over the world with in Asia, Africa, America, Europe, and nearly 75%. So it's 30 out of 18 say that they will not have no intention of investing in this program. Other three are considering it, and two are express serious interest about the program. So actually, I think that 18 number is not a big number. So that's why we cannot conclude anything seriously from that number yet. But since the Gold Card was announced, how many inquiry have you received towards this program, and asking a question to be clarified?
Yes, we've received many inquiries about it. People are very interested in learning about a new opportunity to immigrate to the United States, because we have had the EB-5 visa for a very long time. It was first enacted by our US Congress in 1990, and our current EB-5 Regional Center program, which is the program most investors use to immigrate to the US for investment, that's been around since 1992, and we haven't changed it hardly at all since that time. And so I think it's exciting. Investors are excited about potentially having a new opportunity and a new way to immigrate to the US. And many inquiries focus on what might be the requirements for the Gold Card, and maybe will those investors have different benefits and different requirements under that program. So we're looking forward, just like many of you, we're looking forward to hearing more details about what the Gold Card program might be.
Okay. So, listening to your sharing, I can see that it's also an opportunity for the
Yes.
investor to get the PR of US and even the citizenship, because he mentioned about something about the citizenship as well, with a 5 million investment.
Yes.
Also, since but it's just a piece of the pictures of all the immigration in US.
Correct.
Since President Donald Trump took office in 2025, and also in the first in 2017.
Yes.
Yeah, 17. He has signed numerous executive orders on immigration.
Yes.
And with the with this office in 2025, he many clients, many investors, they also worry about whether he will implement any changes over the immigration during his his period. And have you noticed any clear trend, or anything primary concern that you can see?
Yes. So President Trump is very focused on immigration, and that is because a lot of the American public is also focused on immigration. However, most of that focus in the United States is on other types of issues, such as the border between the United States and Mexico, our refugees and asylum programs, and also the deportation of people who are illegally present in the United States and who do not have status in the United States. Now, President Trump has also been focused on giving a number of executive orders on immigration in his first few days in office. But most of those executive orders that he has published and signed relate to national security concerns. So the government will be focused on putting people through additional background checks and maybe additional security checks to make sure that individuals who are immigrating to the US or even visiting the US in temporary status are individuals who are going to abide by the immigration laws and who are not considered national security threats or dangerous individuals. People are going to go through the same background checks that they always have. So that shouldn't be a huge concern for people who are interested in doing something like the Gold Card or the EB-5 program. We're continuing to operate the same sort of way that we're going to tell the government about who you are and how you earn your money when you're going through these types of processes. And so not much has changed, even though there are some new executive orders.
Okay. I understand that with your opinion, you think that with all the investment options for the immigration into US, like Gold Card or EB-5 programs, there will be not so much change. And they just, put all the method to make sure the background check and maybe the visa delay.
Correct.
What is your opinion about international students who want to stay in US and also with a working visa? Because I think that besides the investor, like investor and through investment, there are many other people that also want to go to US with other type of visa as well.
Correct. So obviously, we have many different types of visas to the US, the students, and then the temporary workers. Many of the students transition later into H-1B status, which is our primary visa for people who are working temporarily in the United States after they graduate from college in the US. And so some of the executive orders have focused on these temporary statuses. There's no proposals to change any of that. However, these executive orders, again, might put people through more stringent background checks. And then the other thing is that the US government might also check more about people in the United States. So, for example, they have stated through the executive orders that where people are on H-1B status and working in the US, those employers can actually expect more site visits from the USCIS, where the USCIS officers go and make sure that the employer is real and that the person is actually working there in the job that they said they were working in at the employer. And for students, there might be some increased scrutiny at the consulates when you're getting your US F1 visa stamp. They, are going to be checking very carefully your I-20 forms and making sure that all of the paperwork is in order for your school, making sure that as a student, if you are continuing on in your student status, that you've been maintaining that status, maintaining the number of academic credits that you must take, and also maintaining your status with the school and the SEVIS, SEVIS database, and making sure that everything is okay in your record. So again, there could definitely be some increased scrutiny, and we are telling clients who are going and trying to get different temporary visas, visitor visas, student visas, work visas for H or L status, expect delays at the US consulates abroad, because having to do these more background checks and being more scrutiny on these applications, it might take a little bit longer than it has in the past in order for you to receive the visa.
Okay, I get it. Understand it. So actually, it just implement to make sure that everything that they apply should be compliant.
Exactly.
If they apply for the working visa, they should work based on the working visa. If
Absolutely.
they apply for the student visa, they should study like they said.
Exactly.
So actually, it is a good thing as well, but the client may face the delay in processing the visa and in giving approval. Come back to the EB-5, because as you say, Gold Card can be a very good opportunity for the investor as well. And but we should not end the EB-5, because it gives the client the multiple selection that they can get to go with the immigration in US. So US has been a very familiar immigration pathway for the investor to come to US. If the Gold Card has been implemented, will become a reality, how will it affect EB-5?
Well, right now, we're not entirely sure how it might impact EB-5, because we don't have a lot of details about what the Gold Card might be. However, we do know that in April of 2022, President Biden, as well as our U.S. Congress, passed the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022. And that extended the EB-5 program through the statute and the passage by Congress of the EB-5 program through 2027. And so what we know is that it would be almost impossible for the president on his own to end the EB-5 program. Our laws and the way our Constitution works says that our U.S. Congress has the authority to pass laws over immigration. So traditionally, the president can propose ideas to change the immigration laws, and they can implement some programs on their own, but generally our U.S. Congress is responsible for passing immigration laws. So because they passed the EB-5 Reform Act in 2022, we would actually need our U.S. Congress to go through a full process to take that law away, to repeal the current EB-5 law. So until our U.S. Congress actually goes through a full legislative process to remove the EB-5 program, the EB-5 program will remain as it is currently today. So that is making an at least $800,000 US investment in a U.S. business that creates jobs for U.S. workers. And so we do believe that that will continue to be around. And again, we'll wait for more details to see how the current Trump administration wants to implement a new Gold Card program. We want to reassure people that it won't be a scenario where 2 days later the EB-5 program goes away, and what will people do if they're in the process of investing?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that is also the concern of many people who are planning to do the EB-5 now.
Correct.
Because they worry that it will implement it right away and they will lose the opportunity. And you said that everything that even EB-5 removal or adding new program will go through approval of Congress. So how fast does the Congress usually approve something?
So this is a great question. Our legislative process in the US is quite slow. So the process would generally be that the Trump administration will come up with an idea and their plans for a new type of program. And that is how the process would be started. Thereafter, the president and his team can share those plans with our US Congress. And from there, individuals in our US Congress, so either someone in our House of Representatives or someone in the Senate, and their team would start drafting the new law. And once the law has been drafted, it actually goes through what we call is the committee process, where one of the committees in our Congress that deals with immigration would review and make suggestions about what the proposed law has been. And then from the committee process, it would get introduced into the floors of both houses, the House of Representatives as well as the Senate. And then it would go for a vote in both houses. If there are any differences, then the law would come back together to be reconciled. And then it would have to be passed by both houses of Congress and then signed into law by the president. So as a result, usually the legislative process is quite long. I don't think it will even take months. I think it could take well over a year to go through that process and to make a new program. And in addition, we have each year a limit on the number of green cards and permanent residencies that we give out to people each year. We have only 140,000 employment-based green cards that we give out each year. And under the 140,000, only 10,000 of those are allocated each year to EB-5, our current investment immigration program. So if we wanted to increase the number of green cards that we give out above the 10,000 or above the 140,000 that we currently give out in our employment-based categories, we would need that to be passed as new law as well. So these things will take time and more details will emerge. That's why it's really important to work with someone professional like BSOP who's going to be monitoring what the US government is doing and what proposals there are for our new investment immigration programs.
Oh, thank you a lot for your helpful insight, because it helps us a lot to understand that the process for getting approved something, how does it go? Actually, it's a funny question, but I still want to ask you, because since he took office in beginning of this year, President Trump has given many orders to many countries, especially relating to tax, to trade wars.
Tariffs,
trade wars over the world. So they are afraid that when he says something, he might have a plan, and will the president have the power to surpass the Congress in all of this approval process?
Yes. So generally not. And we do still have our three houses, our three branches of government. So we have the president, we have our US Congress, as well as the courts. So generally where stakeholders believe that the president has overstepped his authority with respect to some action that he is doing, individuals can actually take those actions to our US court system, which then will review the presidential actions. So one really good example of that recently was that President Trump had announced during his election process that he wanted to try and change the way we make people citizens in the United States. So right now, and for a very long time, the law has been that people who are born within the United States are U.S. citizens, regardless of whether or not their parents are citizens or even illegally present in the United States. And President Trump actually moved forward to try to change the rule to end what we call birthright citizenship, where he said if your parents are unlawfully in the United States and you are born in the United States, that you are not a citizen either. And that was challenged in the court system, and it's still going through the court system actually, but in the initial court action, that was struck down by the court system because our laws are written in a certain way that allows people to become a citizen when they are born within the territory of the United States. And so that is a good example of where different stakeholders and different parties believe that the president has overstepped his authority with respect to an immigration law. The court then goes and decides whether or not that was allowed.
Okay. That's good news because we can understand that even President Trump has a very powerful power, but he still has some limit in implementing some changes, some action over the immigration. As I sneak into your website, I see that you have structured EB-5 investment capital worth $3 billion for all the U.S. projects. Would you consider this as a significant achievement or a challenging experience for yourself?
Both challenging and significant. So again, our law firm has a very large EB-5 practice. We not only help investors like yourself go through the EB-5 process, but we've helped to structure many EB-5 projects in the United States. And so it's a good opportunity for us because we have helped to structure really good projects that have attracted a lot of foreign direct investment into the U.S. and also created a lot of jobs for U.S. workers through the EB-5 program. So we're happy to do that, and we're happy to work with different projects to have that opportunity and then to be able to present that opportunity to investors who want to come to the U.S.
So I believe that you and your firm has been very trusted with not only the investor but also with the developers over US regarding the EB-5 program. So with as someone who has directly involved in structuring large-scale EB-5 projects and also helping with the investor, what advice do you have for Vietnamese investor in selecting safe projects and to mitigating risk?
Yes. So I think the first thing that is very important for investors to do is to surround yourself with the right team members. So that would be selecting a local partner here in Vietnam, like BSOP, who is really going to be your touchstone for the whole process. They're going to help you look over various investment opportunities. They're going to help you with documenting your lawful source of funds for the investment process. They're going to give you advice about the immigration process and different questions that you have that might impact your family. And then the same is true actually for your immigration lawyer. So it's important to work with an experienced immigration lawyer because we're going to work with BSOP to, number one, review project materials to make sure they qualify from an immigration perspective. We're going to make sure that the project has gone through the appropriate process to file their application to receive approval with the U.S. government in order to accept EB-5 investments. We're also going to work on your individual source of funds, so proving how you earned your funds here in Vietnam and what is the exact source of the US dollars that you're investing in the US. So we also work with a local partner and make sure that all of the documents are in order before an investor even transfers their money to the US. We want the investor to feel confident that their paperwork is approvable before they make such an important investment decision in the US. And then finally, I would say it's also very important to review with your other financial professionals. Maybe you want to talk with your accountant or to work with a big accounting firm that can provide you tax advice before you move to the US, because you can do a lot of favorable tax structuring before you come to the United States. And then finally, you might want your financial professionals to help look over on the project side what might be the risks associated with the project, because these are real investments. They are usually real estate investments in the United States, and you might want a professional to look that over and tell you about some of the risks that might be involved in the project.
Okay, thank you a lot for your advice.
Yes.
I think that that covers all the aspects that client might want to make sure about the projects, about the processing with application, and about to have a good partners that can help them with everything from their local country, like in Vietnam.
Yes.
Yeah. So during your all your experience with advisory consultation with EB-5 program, do you notice any difference between the Vietnamese investor comparing to other nationality?
I think Vietnamese investors, number one thing that I really admire is that they're very family oriented, and there's a lot of family goals that go into making the decision. They're very concerned about how their children will be able to go to the United States and have better opportunities for school and working. So that I think is good. I also think that the Vietnamese investors are quite sophisticated when it comes to EB-5. They do a lot of their own research, and they know a lot about the EB-5 program, and they might also know a lot about different investment opportunities that are already existing in the US in order to do EB-5. So the profile of the investor is more sophisticated, and they're prepared. And as a result, they have a lot of good questions about the process and the various projects that are out there. They're also a little bit more conservative maybe than some other countries. I think that's a reflection of, they want to be sure that they're making a good investment and there's a really good chance that they'll get their money back in addition to getting the green card. So all of those things considered, I think Vietnamese investors really think a lot and put a lot of time and effort into the decision-making process for EB-5. And that's why, again, it's so important to work with experienced people who can answer whatever remaining questions that you have that might be more detailed or difficult to answer.
Yeah, you noticed very correctly about the Vietnamese investor, because that's also the typical things that I noticed during my advisory in the SOP as well.
Yeah.
So they are very cautious. They are, but they're sophisticated. They know a lot about EB-5 program.
Yes.
I think because EB-5 has been in Vietnamese market for quite a long time.
Very long time.
Vietnamese investor also follow the EB-5 since it was only 500,000 USD until they raise it up and then they down it again.
And actually, in our experience, Vietnam is a very mature EB-5 market. Behind China, which uses the majority of EB-5 visas, Vietnam has probably the second largest number of investors immigrating through the EB-5 program.
That's correct. There's some chart or some numbers showing that Vietnam is the second biggest market after China in Asia regarding the EB-5.
Correct.
Yeah. Regarding the approval number, some rate in the embassy over the world.
Yes.
So it's true what you said. I think that Vietnamese people already know about EB-5, so that's why they are more careful with choosing the partner, choosing the lawyer, choosing the projects to invest in. But still, among all the things that favorable to investors, there's still some challenging still remain. And I think the biggest challenge is still the source of fund.
Yes.
Right? So typically, what kind of difficulties they usually encounter when they're doing the source of fund?
I think the biggest challenge for Vietnamese investors is record keeping, actually, because a lot of investors in Vietnam that we have worked with over the past 15 years that we've been helping families in Vietnam is that the wealth is accumulated over many different generations. So a long time ago, perhaps the investors' grandparents started purchasing properties around Vietnam, and there's generational wealth from grandparents, parents, children, and documenting property acquisition from a very long time ago in Vietnam, maybe all the way back since the 1930s, is certainly challenging because records are not kept in the same way we might keep records in the United States or in some other westernized countries. But yet the USCIS, our immigration service, wants to still see documentation with respect to real property and things like that.
Yes.
And also the banking systems have been different. So the banking system here is not exactly the same, and the records are not kept in the same way that they are in the United States. So, there's certain financial habits of Vietnamese families over the years, particularly saving money in cash at home, saving wealth in gold. There are certain things that we don't do in the United States and that seem foreign to us, but that are very prevalent here. So documenting the source of funds can be challenging, and it's also very specific to your family because each family's wealth comes from different places. However, when you work with experienced partners, we can provide strategies for documenting these things. And where maybe your family has a challenge documenting certain things, we can maybe suggest different solutions for that. And many of our investors from Vietnam utilize the wealth that they have through real estate because the real estate market in Vietnam has been quite strong over time, and the appreciation value of real estate has made it possible for many families to do EB-5. It's actually the most popular, the most popular.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why it is the biggest challenge is because it's different from case to case.
Yes.
They cannot just copy this one to another one.
No.
So that makes the documentation and the guidance is more important to doing the EB-5 and also other immigration as well because it's not just copy and paste.
No.
It's different from
correct.
Yeah.
And the USCIS that decides the EB-5 cases, they want to have a lot of detail about who you are and who your family is and where there are other family members involved in the source of funds, like your parents or your grandparents. Maybe they've donated cash to you or donated land or other properties to you. The USCIS wants to know details about them also. So there will be a lot of documentation to be given over in this process, and you do need to be aware of that from the outset. It is very document heavy, and so when we ask you for lots of these documents, we're doing so not because we want to make your life difficult, but because we know the Immigration Service will want to see those types of documents, and they make your case stronger. And we ask for them because we've seen them required in other cases. So we want to know the individual circumstances of each of the families that we work with. And we provide very detailed instructions about the documents that might be required for source of funds. However, we do that on the basis of lots of experience and knowing what are the types of things that the Immigration Service will want to see for your type of source of funds.
As some saying is that all roads lead to Rome. So
yes.
Actually we just gather information to have many roads, but it leads to the same destination to same goal.
Correct.
So actually, I don't want to talk about the bad example, but
Mhm.
all the time you have been supporting clients, do you encounter any clients that have unfortunate mistake that caused them when applying for EB-5, which is caused them problem, like rejected or something, and later on you need to help them to resolve it?
Yes. So I think over time, one of the challenges that Vietnamese families have experienced is transferring the funds to the US. That has been a source of questions for the USCIS when they are deciding people's applications. In the past, Vietnamese investors use various strategies to transfer funds to the US, maybe by using third parties or individuals in other countries who can help swap currency into US dollars for Vietnamese families. And over time, the Immigration Service in the United States has also evolved their questions regarding the path of the funds, and they scrutinized individuals who were involved in transferring the currency on behalf of investors or exchanging currency on behalf of investors. This was actually a problem about 5 years ago for Vietnamese investors, but actually our law firm was very involved in providing solutions for those type of cases. We helped many investors through that process to explain to the Immigration Service that many of these investors have used actually licensed currency exchange houses in other countries like Singapore and Australia. And by helping the investors document those companies that they worked with and how they were licensed abroad, we were able to get all of those case denials overturned, and we have been very successful in getting those cases approved so that the individuals could move on to get their green cards. So that was a huge win, I think, for our law firm, and we're happy to help and assist families through that. But this is just one example of the importance of working again with experienced people, because we know what the Immigration Service will ask about. And this is also one example of, I had mentioned earlier, how things are getting easier for Vietnamese investors. And I think the path of funds has certainly gotten easier for Vietnamese families over time. So again, a good time to move forward if you're interested and talk with the SOP about strategies for investing and transferring money.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Actually, it's fortunate for them to meet you and to work to resolve the problem, because I met many people and they have many problems with transfer of funds. And even during the process, if they get approval of E526, they still got problem when they process to the green card.
Correct.
So, actually, transferring of fund is never easy.
No.
It's different from case to case as well as the source of fund.
Yes.
And we find ways to do it, but it's also changing. And I think the most exciting about the immigration is about changing. Everything is different. Every case you do is different.
Yes.
And and it's changed time to time. You can never be old in this market. So that's the main point. So given the current situation, what message would you like to share with the Vietnamese investor and also with the SOP viewer today, considering about the US immigration?
So I still think that it's a great time to move forward in an immigration journey if that is what you want to do. Again, I know that many of you are very family oriented. I think the number one thing that I enjoy about working with families in Vietnam is hearing your goals and hearing your family plans, because that's really where it all originates, what you want to do for your family, which I think is great. And I think it's a good time to still do EB-5. So we've been talking a lot about the gold card, and that might become a reality for us in the future. But while we wait for detailed plans on that, it's still possible to do the EB-5 program. Again, we talked a lot today about the process that would need to happen if there is a repeal of the EB-5 law. So EB-5 goes away. We think that would take the congressional action, and there would need to be a lot of notice given to investors. And generally, courts are favorable to investors in these scenarios. So where an investor is making a decision to make the investment today and to file their case, and the EB-5 law today is still validly existing and is extended through September 30th of 2027, it's a good time to still make the investment, and those investments and that immigration process should be able to move forward because that law is validly existing today. And so there's still a lot of really great projects out there. One thing we didn't talk too much about is that when we passed the new law in April of 2022, we had a lot of changes, I think, that made the projects better.
Yeah.
There's background checks that have to be done of the individuals involved in the projects. The USCIS has to visit each of the projects to make sure that they are real. The USCIS audits the regional centers now, and the regional centers have to give updates to the investors about the projects. So there was a lot of really good changes to make the projects better. And as a result, we have seen better projects in the market since 2022. And there's a lot of sophisticated people out there doing EB-5 now. And so that gives, I think, investors more choices in the market and better choices when you're making a decision about doing an EB-5 investment in a specific project. So I think that's a really good opportunity for investors.
Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing such a valuable insight today. So through your sharing, we know about the Gold Card, about the future of EB-5, and also how to choose the program. Make sure that if you want to still invest into EB-5, there's still opportunity, and still a very good opportunity as well.
Yes.
So dear audience and viewers of BTalk, investing in US immigration is never easy, and policy change requires so much careful consideration. And you can achieve it with a good strategy and also a good partners and a good consideration as well. So before ending the BTalk today, do you want to say some final goodbye to our viewers?
Yes, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today and listening to our discussion about the program. We are very excited to work with BSOP as well as you to hear about what your family's goals are and to help you move forward in an immigration process that is right for you and right for your family. So thank you so much again for listening to me today, and I hope to meet you soon in person. Come on.
Một lần nữa xin cảm ơn bà Jennifer đã đồng hành cùng chúng tôi ngày hôm nay. Với các quý vị đang xem chương trình BTalk ngày hôm nay, nếu có bất kỳ câu hỏi gì, xin vui lòng để lại comment dưới video. Và đừng quên hãy theo dõi BTalk để cập nhật những video và những thông tin mới nhất liên quan đến những chương trình đầu tư định cư di trú trên toàn thế giới. Hẹn gặp lại quý vị trong các số tiếp theo.